In the last couple of videos, we looked at Mesopotamia and Egypt. Now we're going to look at the Indus Valley Civilization on the Indian subcontinent. The Himalayan mountains are some of the largest mountain ranges on the face of planet Earth. They're so big, in fact, that even the wind and the weather can't get over these mountains. This is going to cause a environmental situation for the Indus Valley where monsoon winds will blow moisture onto the subcontinent, which will result in just this unbelievable downpour of rain and water all over the subcontinent seasonally. The monsoon winds, as well as irrigation from the flooding of the Indus River, help to promote agriculture in the area, but sometimes, like with Mesopotamia, the rains as well as the flooding was somewhat unpredictable. In addition to that, there was a lot of earthquakes and things that would cause rivers to actually divert course and take a different direction altogether, which, as you can imagine, could sometimes easily result in the destruction of an entire village. Because of the mountains to the north and the oceans on the eastern and western sides of the subcontinent, the Indus Valley Civilization was actually quite isolated from China and Mesopotamia, even though if you went through the Khyber Pass, you could do trade with the Mesopotamians, which was often done. The Indus Valley Civilization had cotton, which they used to make cloth, as well as other things that they would trade for things that they might need for the Mesopotamia. So there was a degree of interaction going on and cultural diffusion even between the ancient peoples of both the Indus Valley Civilization and Mesopotamia. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, was named after Harappa, which was one of two major cities that we got to talk about in this Indus Valley Civilization. The other one is Mohenjo-Daro, and both of them had massive populations of somewhere around 100,000 people. This is absolutely huge when you look at ancient standards, where tens of thousands of people were huge at the time. In terms of social and cultural elements of this civilization, there was not as much emphasis maybe on social divisions early on. Religion played a very, very important role, and typically the more depth you would be with religion, probably the higher your stats. When you look at the artifacts that they might have had, there was a lot of entertainment-oriented artifacts, a lot of ornate pottery, a lot of children's toys and things like this that somewhat suggest that these guys may have had a very privileged type of life early on. There was also little emphasis on weapons, which suggested that there wasn't a whole lot of warfare. In terms of power and politics, it's very, very difficult actually to know exactly how their society was structured and the importance that power and politics played in who would have and who would have not. The reason for this is because when you think about their language, unlike with cuneiform in Mesopotamia and hieroglyphics, there's no way of deciphering what the Harappans were writing. Yes, they did have a writing system, but we don't know what they were saying, and so a lot of what the Harappan civilization was doing is shrouded in the mystery of, we just don't know how to read and write what they were writing and what their symbols mean and other things. There's just always going to be a mystery until we figure out a way of translating the Harappan civilization's language. When you look at religion, these guys were extremely religious. They were polytheistic and probably a theocracy, just like with the Egypt. In the same way also as with Mesopotamia and Egypt, eventually you're going to have another group come in, which is going to kind of take over the area and establish a different take on the civilization itself. And this group was the warrior group known as the Aryans, which brought with them the Indo-European language, which I've made a video for a geography class about this as well. As the Aryans landed into the Indus Valley area, they lost their nomadic warrior ways and began to really focus on staying settled and adapting their society into an agrarian society. The earliest form of the Hindu religion can be traced back to these Aryans that lived in the region at the time. Hinduism is the oldest mainstream polytheistic religion that we have on Earth today, and in fact its existence predates written history. When you really think about it, our lack of understanding of what these guys were writing due to our lack of understanding of their language leads there to be a lot of mystery as to exactly how the religion developed. But over time, there would be certain writings like the UPANISHADS, for example, that would form part of the holy writings of the Hindu religion even today. With the Hindu religion would also come the Indian caste system, which was also very, very old and dates back to the Aryan. It was a strict social stratification system where your elites, your Brahmins, the priestly class, were the ones who were most in touch with the gods, and eventually through a process of reincarnation would go off and become one with the Brahmin spirit, and basically that's like their heaven or their afterlife, is to go and be reabsorbed in a way by their overarching god figure. Other groups include the warrior group, include the artisan group, and the peasants, and eventually you're going to have that develop into a even more rigid class stratification system that wouldn't allow for marrying into other castes. Early on they did. The Indian caste system actually persisted all the way up until the late 1900s, and in some places in rural India today you might still see remnants of it. In terms of intellectual, you've got your Harappan writing system. You've also got very, very intricately planned cities and architecture, which when we talk about planned cities, we talk about they're built with future development in mind. In other words, they're designed to float. When you think about unplanned cities, you think about something like buildings that were just thrown up to get against one another, like during the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain, where there was fire hazards and danger and things of that nature and a bunch of waste. Well, the Indus Valley actually had architecture that allowed for advanced plumbing systems like what the Romans would have done. This is huge, a huge advancement, a huge development that other civilizations just didn't share with the Harappan civilization. They also used wheels for pottery, so they were developed potter's wheels that would help them to make better pottery. They also developed, like as we said earlier, cotton, which would kind of lead into the next of these of the SPRITE acronym, and that is the trade. When you think about economics and you think about how these guys would have needed in the same way as other civilizations did, it makes sense to think that these guys would have been doing trade with one another. There is certainly evidence to suggest that the Indus Valley and Mesopotamian societies did in fact do trade with one another, but it's very unlikely still that there was as much interaction between the Indus Valley and China to the north because of the Himalayan mountain. That's it for the Indus Valley Civilization. I hope you guys are enjoying my videos. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you want to hear. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. Check out my description for additional links in some of these videos. Peace!